Hey everyone, Pugs here with two new reviews for y'all. Today I'm covering Patrick Man and Gary's new toy. I don't really remember the premiere of these two the way I remember the previous, but these are still episodes that I associate very strongly with Season 9, especially Season 9A. I also know that both of these episodes don't have what I'd call the strongest reputation, but their reputations aren't that bad either, especially these days where those kinds of opinions have kind of mellowed out. Well, anyway, as always, now is the part where I say thank you to everyone watching the video today, and now let's just get right into it. Patrick Man joins the very exclusive, I say facetiously, club of episodes with a punctuation mark in their title. It also joins the actually somewhat exclusive club of episodes with a plot relating to superheroism. But it's not a Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy tribute episode, not yet. The show hadn't quite gotten to that point by Season 9A, but we are quickly approaching it. Patrick Man is our first Patrick-focused episode of Season 9, and I'm interested to see where this goes. Season 8 did some major rehabilitative work for Patrick Star as a character, so it seems we're about to get our first look as to whether that work will be maintained or not. The beginning of Patrick Man is reminiscent of No Hat for Pat, with a decorative hint of Big Pink Loser. Considering I enjoy both of these episodes, this may be a good sign indeed. And it's not like this episode remains similar to these two either, because it veers off in its own direction as soon as the end of this first scene. And this direction reminds me of No Nose Knows. The gist of this episode is that Patrick is bored and unsatisfied with his life. He's jealous that SpongeBob has a place to go and do something, i.e. the Krusty Krab. It's funny because if you think about it, this is kind of deep subject matter, but the episode never treats it as such, and it certainly doesn't need to. But anyway, since Patrick is so bored of his life, he of course ignores the suspiciously pointed ads on the TV and decides he wants to become a superhero. I'd say this is a fun enough plot. It can definitely go in many different directions. I also think Patrick's little superhero outfit is cute. Patrick, or Patrick Man's, first stop is the Krusty Krab. Seems this is one of those times where the Krusty Krab is having a slow business day. The few interactions we see of Mr. Krabs and Squidward here, both before and after Patrick Man shows up, are demonstrative of their long-standing camaraderie, which I like. I also just love how silly this episode treats Patrick trying to be a superhero. I like how it's obviously playfully serious about the whole thing, like with Patrick being all gung-ho about his secret identity. The episode then transitions to Patrick Man's attempts to stop crime, which failed about as much as you'd expect. Like Patrick stopping kids from fighting, except for the part where they were just high-fiving, or him stopping Mr. Krabs from picking up $1 on the street, or him wrongfully thinking Mrs. Puff is stealing a boat. I did like the running gag of him being unable to fly, that was good. And although this episode does use a similar formula to No Nose Knows, wherein Patrick is being arrogant and think that he knows what's best for other people, he isn't insufferable here. Not that he was in that episode either, but I'm just saying that with a formula like that, it could be a recipe for disaster. But this episode is like shuffleboarding in that way, in that despite the inconveniencing nature of the main protagonist, the episode is still enjoyable and funny in watching said protagonist bumble around in the name of justice. It's so ridiculous that I can't even be frustrated, and Patrick doesn't come off as smug, more self-righteous, but in an amusing way. Patrick Man ends with an enjoyable action scene between Patrick and the Dirty Bubble. It's delightfully hammy and camp and decently funny as well. It also just reminds me of Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 2, which I think after a certain point was intentional, and that's rather fitting given that this episode is the very last time we see Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy speak in the show, as both of their voice actors have of course passed away now. Their appearance in this episode was small, but a fitting end given that this episode is almost about Patrick taking the reins of heroism from them, though not as directly as Mermaid Pants will later be about it. I thought Patrick Man was a good episode, and I keep doing this, but while it seems like I had so much positive to say about it, I didn't, love this episode. For one thing, it wasn't very funny. There were some jokes I liked, but overall the humor was kind of lacking. And I mean, I've said this before, but even if Patrick's character image has been rehabilitated, he's not really a character I like to watch on his own, so that doesn't do this episode many favors. But this certainly isn't a bad watch, which is why I'm putting it in my good tier, where it comes in with a score of 7.6 out of 10. Heading into Gary's new toy, my first thought is that I'm about to watch Treats all over again. Let it be known that this is not a good thing, because that episode had quite a few problems that I'm not sure that this episode will solve. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this episode will, at the very least, not continue the trend of Gary-focused episodes disappointing me greatly. that would certainly be a treat, pun intended. Well, we at least start off with another gorgeous background alert with this vibrant establishing shot of SpongeBob's pineapple at dawn, though it looks more like dusk to me, rich with reds, yellows, and pinks. God, I love these kinds of background art so much, man. On the plot side of things, Gary's new toy begins with SpongeBob finding that all the shit in his house has been chewed up by Gary, who is now acting like more of a dog than a cat. At least, I don't think cats chew shit up, they more scratch everything. My parents' dog chews everything up, though. Anyway, I just love the show's lack of consistency in this regard. When you stop caring so much about your analogy, a whole world of plots open up for you. To solve the problem of Gary chewing up everything under the sun, SpongeBob takes him to the pet store so that they can get him a new chew toy. I love how when they run into Patrick at the store, he calls Gary Gareth. That's just really funny to me. It's like calling Scooby-Doo Scoobert. I also noticed that this episode begins the trend that we see across any pet-focused episode after this point of Patrick acting like a pet himself. I mean, he came to the pet store so that he could eat the food there. I know it's just a low-hanging fruit of a joke to showcase Patrick's foolishness by having him act on the level of an animal, but especially once we get our first episode with Spot, this joke takes on a life of its own, and this episode may in fact be the impetus of it. Anywho, after perhaps a little too long at the pet store, Gary finds the toy of his dreams, a rather unassuming looking red ball. Gary quickly becomes obsessed with the red ball, to the point that he seems to prefer it over SpongeBob himself. In a way, this episode is kind of like the inverse of Have You Seen the Snail, now that I think about it. This is also where the similarity to Treats comes in, and let me tell you now, I don't care much for this here, just like I didn't in that episode. But I will admit that this episode makes this premise far more enjoyable than that episode, at least at times. Like, I love how Gary's obsession is given, like, character. I love how it gets more and more creepy to the point where he starts painting himself to look like the ball. That was pretty funny. I also loved a little throwaway line about how SpongeBob apparently has credit cards. And I like SpongeBob's dramatics about leaving Gary and the ball, but also like, come on man, you own the house, kick them out. Gary's lack of care about the whole thing makes it funnier. But it doesn't take long for Gary to realize his mistake when he's hungry and SpongeBob isn't there to feed him. And when Gary tries to get away from the ball and ends up having to burn it in a fire, this part is decently entertaining. Kinda quick though. The ensuing apology between SpongeBob and Gary was pretty wholesome too, and I loved the callback to the wallet joke. The ending of the episode with Gary hissing at the ball is also rather abrupt, but I kind of like it that way. Like, it doesn't help with the whole unfinished feel of this enterprise though. Gary's new toy has garnered a rather short review from me because there's truly nothing I can say about it. The plot is very simple, and while I did enjoy the end result of Gary's obsession with the ball, getting there was a bit of a chore that dragged the whole episode down. So there isn't really much for me to say without just harping on the episode unnecessarily, and unfortunately this means that the episode has not broken the trend of Gary episodes disappointing me. Maybe next time? Either way, this episode is going in my okay tier, where it comes in with a score of 6.8 out of 10. As always, I'll be ending this video with some closing thoughts of mine. These episodes were very simple, and my original written reviews for them were very, very short. One goal of mine for this next season of reviews is to actually sit down and expand on them for the videos. As I continue to find my footing between balancing my job and this channel, this might again mean that uploads are slowed down to once a week. While I do like the speed of 2 reviews a week, it's also hard to give every episode the time it deserves in my script with that sort of schedule, so it's all about finding the right balance right now, and I appreciate everyone's patience as I do that. It's hard. All those YouTubers with bigger production values than me who have a full-time job, I have a lot of respect for the work ethic, cause it's hard work for real. Well, anyway, that's basically all I've got to say for today's reviews, so I'll go ahead and end things here, and I'll see y'all in the next review.